saying my favorite prayer, God, enter here. Hello, everyone. I'm Martha Novak, and this is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. Glad to talk with you today. We are continuing our series on authenticity, and when I was pulling it together, I realized this would not be the last show, I don't think. There's lots to talk about and some new information. Always new information, right? But we will do our summary as soon as we possibly can. I hope all of you all are well. This is in the middle of the coronavirus thing, and it is also Easter. And I hope you all are making it a good one in your self-isolation. Of course, these shows are archived, so you may be listening to this at any time. We wish you a good day, no matter what it is. And I hope you all are all doing well and staying healthy and taking precautions so you can be. Now, let us move on with information after a prayer. We are, by the way, live today. Our guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. I'd love to hear from you, particularly if you want to talk about the subject of authenticity and have some things that you'd like to add about it. I think that's a marvelous thing. We haven't gotten to our summation where we pull all of these ideas together. We're trying to lay the foundation, keep in mind, for some of the big things that are part of authenticity, like the secure attachment style, resilience, and things like that. We've talked about several of them as we have done this series, and we continue to do so. You know, the fact of the matter is, it's kind of silly to name these series. I guess I have to do that for radio and Facebook Live's sake. But here's the truth. Anything that I ever talk to you about is all about your authenticity and hence your potential. There hasn't been a show that I've done that hasn't been on that. We just haven't called it what it is, but here we are for whatever reason. We talk about the bits and pieces of things. And the truth is, the bits and pieces are important, aren't they? Because that's really where we make the changes, is in the bits and pieces, not in any kind of large picture. That becomes fantasy. Oh, hello, darling. Hi, Randy. Hello, hello, hello. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. That looks like Spanish. The reason I get messages, guys, on those of you on Blog Talk Radio, I get messages on, hello, I get messages on Facebook Live. We are having to resume. Let's do a prayer. Get ourselves all centered, no matter what religion we are or what spiritual persuasion we are. You know, where I'm coming from is I want to gather all of you all that are religious into under the banner just for 90 minutes of spirituality, where we really are all one. Okay? I think that's really important, and that's why I do my non-denominational or all denominational prayers, maybe. Let me say it that way. I believe that this world is energy, that our God is energy, that we are all part of that we are energy, but we also have the energy of the lower energies of the ego child's mind and the higher energies of the highest mind. This is our spiritual journey. This is what I believe. You don't have to believe it, but if you're tuned into a show like this, you must be at least curious. So here we go. All right? Here's our prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all that everyone is in this world, we thank you so much for contacting us now and for opening us from within to whatever messages there are for us as a next step or two or three to take on our journey. We thank you so much, dear God, for the blessing of the way the energy works in this world and the way it's working out right now. For even though we might not be doing the things we ordinarily do, we admit we've gotten a little complacent about our world. Now that it's thrown into upside down, into a bit of a tizzy, We thank you for that, because it's making us look at things and analyze things and see things. And there are gifts in this for all of us that we're beginning to see this week. We thank you for all of that and so much more as we open now in this prayer and beyond to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do according to the truth that lies in your enlightenment. That is in each of us. We thank you so much, dear God, for it all. We say now that we know nothing. We surrender it to our highest selves, that the you, through us and through all things, who know it all, can give us the messages that we need individually today, through the show, through the prayer, through our lives, through the rest of this Easter day and beyond. Thank you, and so it is. Amen. Certainly I was reared in the Easter tradition, and I was reared Presbyterian. It was interesting when I look back at my life, though. I sang in a Baptist choir. I went to an Episcopal school. It was very much under the auspices of the Episcopal Church. I dated Catholic men, one of whom became a priest I'm very proud of in Cyprus. It's odd, this life, but I am here to say that no matter what we are, we're all energy and part of the same God. That's my belief. Certainly, you can believe it or not. I support that right. Now, what I'd like to do today is to go back and talk about the secure attachment. When we were working on attachment styles before, I saved this part for right now because the secure attachment has everything to do with our authenticity. The secure attachment is one of the big, what do I want to say, foundations, I think. The foundations of security and the secure attachment style. So I want to go back and put that on the table. And then I found another interesting article that I also want to put on the table concerning this, that is how your attachment styles impacts your relationships. You keep in mind, I'm not talking about just romantic relationships, although that's certainly critical. I'm not talking about just heterosexual relationships. I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about relationships in general. There have been studies done where scientists just observed people once they knew what their attachment style was, interacting with other people. It was nothing sexual, nothing anything. They just put them in a room and observed them talking, and those styles were still present. Okay? So this is all relationships. All right. So let's talk about this. I'm taking the secure attachment style from Jeb Kinnison, Kinnison, his website. You keep in mind that the attachment styles can be a little tricky, and that is because anybody that comes along that has a method sometimes changes the name of these things. So I tend to teach out of one. I'll just choose one. And so I have chosen Jeb Kinnison. I agree with almost everything he says. I don't agree with everything he says, because you and I, in a show like this, and what I do for a living, what I do is talk about consciousness, talk about enlightenment. That's what I do. That's what I do. In that, psychology, some styles, all that, as part of your healing. However, because our goals are dissimilar, he's trying to disseminate information in a purely psychological way, and I have a different end. We sometimes disagree, as I do with a lot of people, with our wording and with our meanings. Exactly. I'd like to be a little more specific, and sometimes just out and out disagree. I've only found one point that I would quibble about here. That's why I choose him, because I think he's quite the brilliant person to put all this down. Now, he talks about Levine and Heller. Levine and Heller were the ones who initially observed these styles. And you keep in mind, we have 3 styles. We have, let's see if I can, a dismissive avoidant. These are insecure attachment styles. Dismissive avoidant, anxious avoidant, sometimes called fearful avoidant. And the third one is anxious preoccupied. There's a 4th one, which is the one I'm going to talk about right now, called the secure attachment. The secure attachment might have been created by the best parents in the world that you knew were there for you all the time. And that's a wonderful thing if you did have parenting like that. Most people do not, in my opinion. You see, you can have the most wonderful parents in the world, and you can still get things screwy in your head. I mean, you remember before 18 months old, we are just a little blob of undeveloped love. And our consciousness, undeveloped consciousness as well. So we are in the moment before 18 months old. You are living in the moment like little animals do. We are in the moment. If I say to my dog, let's go for a walk, but not now, in 2 hours, dog just understands I let him down because it wasn't right then. He hears the word walk, it's expected to be right then. Children are like that too before 18 months old. All time is now, you see. So when something hurts you at that age, we presume in our child's mind it's going to last forever. And of course, none of us as parents want our children to be hurt. And yet, we do hurt them, darlings. It's just the way it's supposed to be. We'll change them late. We feed them late. We'll feed them early. We get them off a schedule. The things that children understand like that, they are working through, they are storing in their minds, so that when these children grow up, they're gathering research for all of this funny energy they didn't understand, and they say, oh, see, my parent doesn't love me, that's why, I was fed late. Now, we don't remember consciously that we were fed late, do we? Absolutely we don't. Nevertheless, we have these issues in here that were created in the womb and out of the womb in the first 8 years of life that we don't even remember, that supported some sort of strange energy we didn't understand. And now we understand it according to our ego child's mind and what that tells us. And we have issues. Everybody has them. I get real tickled at people who say, well, I don't have any issues. It's like, I guess you're not part of the human race, cause everybody has them, whether you know it or not. We all have them. We talk about them here. We get them on the table here. That's just all there is to it. We laugh about them. We realize we're not the only ones that has that issue. Okay. When I started my advanced class, and I have great advanced classes, I hope that you all will come and participate in my classes sometime. They're really lots of fun. But when everybody first gets to these classes, everybody's really ashamed of their issues. And we'll reluctantly try to give a little information about them in class. Oh my gosh, after all these years of people being with me, everybody just says, oh, I have that. This is the way it looks on me. Let's get it off, It's very cute, very dear, very brave. We've long passed the place of bravery. That's just kind of taken for granted these days. Everybody is doing really well. And I wish that for you as well. Okay. Oh, by the way, I want to mention something to you. I had the funniest thing happen last week. My darling friend sent me a picture of her dog listening to the show. The dog looks so serious. You'll see it on the website. We'll post it soon. And she's given us permission to use it. And the show is in the background. You see the show a little bit, and the dog is. And I got so tickled, but it gave me an idea. We've got a marvelous community here of people from all over the world that listen to these shows. Please send your pictures in. We're going to mount this, I think, and where to send the pictures of your dog, of you, of anybody who is there listening to the show. We would like your permission, if you send them in, to use them on the website. We won't use your names unless you want us to, but we would love to have pictures of this community, because all of us are talking, right, on the internet. Everybody's saying good morning to everybody else. Everybody is trying to communicate. If somebody has a problem, somebody else steps in and says, here, I can solve that for you. And we have a lovely community. Let's see what we all look like. I think that would be so much fun. So send in pictures of you all listening to the show, or of your dogs or cats listening to the show, or anybody that is in your household doing so. We would love that. And we'll post them eventually and make a very nice display so you all can see each other. Okay? It would be nice to have first names if you all feel comfortable with that. We will, I don't send those pictures in to me, because I won't know what to do with them. They're going to go to my IT person, and look for his name and number on the internet. I don't think I can pull it up right now. It's oh, well, I'll give it to you certainly by next week, and we'll have it posted this week on the internet for you on our website, which is Martha Novak, NOVAK.com. Going now into the secure attachment. Let's give you some definitions for that. The characteristics for that, I should say. Now, this is according to Jeb Kennison, who has taken his research from Levine and Heller. Secures are great conflict busters. During a fight, they don't need to act defensively. Remember what defensiveness is. I say that on lots of shows, right? Defensiveness is when you actually agree with the other person, but you're not ready to admit it to yourself. That's what defensiveness is. So during a fight, they don't feel the need to be defensive or to injure or punish their partner. And so they prevent any situation from escalating. Good? Now, guys, I want to put on the table that we're not super people. We're super people, but we're not super people like Superman, right? You're going to do this sometimes. I'm usually pretty great at that, except in one instance. When anybody attacks, like a husband, attacks what I believe to be true and essential, when I am trying to add value in some way according to me, which we all have the right to do. And if somebody comes after that, I'm going to be a bear. I'm going to be a bear. I'm going to try to explain, and then I'm just going to get mad if the explanation isn't listened to. I want you all to hear that, because all of us are in various relationships with ourselves, and we need to know how we're wired, and that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm usually pretty good at de-escalating something, and I sure am good at de-escalating in a session, because when people get mad at me in sessions, they're getting mad at me because I'm really trying to help and trying to move them off something that I know isn't good for them, right? I don't tend to do this then, because you can come out with all sorts of artillery. It doesn't mean anything if I know what my job is. But in a marriage, in a relationship with somebody, of course, no one has the right to step over that line and attack you for what you are trying to do when you think you're absolutely sure inside that it's the right thing. Now, that doesn't happen very often, but I am putting it on the table that it happens. And the reason I'm even talking about this is, guys, don't give yourself a hard time. Realize where that's coming from. You know, I've taken you all through the Myers-Briggs thing. I'm an INFP. That's what all of them say. I'm just as placid as I can be. I am fine with everything. Do not attack my values. I'll come after you. Okay? So, not that I'm coming after you. Don't be afraid. All right. But anyway, that's just who I am. So a lot of this is You having information about who you are. If you don't know who you are, how are you going to find your authenticity? I say, know what your Myers-Briggs is, know what your Enneagram is, know all of these things, know what your attachment style is. You investigate, dear hearts. You don't know how to put it together if you don't. So that's my first point. That's his too. They're great conflict busters. I added the addendum. Okay. Moving along. Second point is that, and by the way, I have allergies. The pollen is out right now on Easter Sunday morning. So if you see me wiping my nose, it's not coronavirus, I promise. Nobody's going to get anything. Okay. Second point is that secures are mentally flexible. They're not threatened by criticism. Nobody likes it, guys, but we're not threatened by it. You understand? That's you. Your authentic self isn't threatened by criticism. They're willing to consider their ways and, if necessary, revise their beliefs and strategies, behaviors, you know. I think that's extremely important to go, in my heart of hearts, is that true? Years ago, I remember having a great success in the theater. Okay, that was wonderful. And God talked to me through a director friend of mine, that came to see me. Oh, this man was lovely, wise, one of those quiet, loving types. I was crazy about him. I really was. So he walked me to my car after the show, waited for me, you know, to come off the stage and get my makeup off. And he walked to the car with me. And at one point, you know, we were catching up on our lives. I hadn't seen him for a year or two or three or four, maybe even more. And he walked me to the car and he said, at one point he said, in the dark, half dark, he said, "Why are you so happy?" It was so interesting because I knew I wasn't. I knew that was God speaking to me through him, okay? And it then made me ask questions. You know, I have several of those experiences in my life where I just feel like that God spoke to me through someone and I was supposed to listen. So what it did, I don't remember what I answered him. I may have just been real flip and said, well, I just am, you know, one of those things that we do in the half dark after a theater performance and we're tired. But it certainly made me look at happiness and look at who I was the rest of my life. Now, you've got those times in your life where someone has asked you to think about things too. There have been moments that have stuck out for you through the years where it's supposed to take you to another level of you. So I want you to realize that they are there and they're built into everybody's life. And we're supposed to know what those things are. We're supposed to recognize them when we go by. Now, what's happening is if you have an attachment style that's insecure, we avoid it because all of those attachment styles, whether they have the name avoidant in them or not, are all avoidant. It's how you avoid, okay? Yourself and other people. Don't avoid. Look at it. It's not going to kill you. And that's the start of doing something different, isn't it? I think so. That's mental flexibility. Just hear what people are saying to you and give it some consideration. Sometimes it's wrong, by the way. And in those cases, you have absolute permission from God, from you, to say, no, after careful consideration of that, that isn't true. However, here's an element that is true in that, you see? Okay, good. The third point is, characteristic, is that they are effective communicators. They expect others to be understanding and responsive, so expressing their feelings freely and accurately to their partners comes naturally to them. That's absolutely true. you just keep in mind that everybody has various levels of that. Some people are better communicators than others. I'm really good with words. At least I think I am. And that's my fantasy. Maybe. Words are my thing. I certainly love them, whether I'm any good at them or not. I certainly love words. However, I'm married to a man who is not so thrilled with words. He's a doer, let me tell you. Wow. Is he smart and is he a doer? He's not terrific with words. He says he loves me in a million ways in a day. He does it by doing, by touching, by being there. He's wonderful. Okay. There are times I need words, so I will say to him, okay, I'm going to tell you this, and I want you to say this back in your way. We have a joke about that, right? And sometimes I need to talk to my friends. We all have our different levels of things, guys. It's a fantasy to think, by the way, that our partners should be Prince Charming or Princess Charming and provide everything. We have to let everybody be their difference. And we have to appreciate that difference ultimately, don't we? Sometimes we get aggravated about it, and sometimes we realize it's exactly the way it needs to be. I think the more you do consciousness work, you realize, well, if it happens, it's supposed to. And there's something in it for us, you see. A change of mind, a change of heart, opening up to more forgiveness, more generosity. Okay, well, you see where I'm going with this. Everybody isn't an effective communicator the same way. And we have to allow for that. And that means opening our awareness to see what they are doing and where they are coming from and appreciating that. What do I want to say here? That your partner isn't good with words is no reason for you not to be. That's what I want to say. Because Michael expresses differently, he's still expressing. And so my job is to do it my way. Okay. Secures, the secure attachment style, next point, are not game players. They want closeness. They believe others want the same. Kennison says, so why play games? Here is my point that I will add. I don't think people have a clue that they're playing games. I don't think they have a clue. Nope. You have to do a lot of work before you start seeing, wait a minute, that's a manipulation. That's a little game I'm playing. That's a little this. That's a little this. It takes awareness to see that we're all playing games until we don't. The authentic self, call it the secure attachment if you want, doesn't play any games. It's pretty much what it is. You want something, say you want it. Go for it. Great. You come to an obstacle, get creative to go around it, over it, change your plan, be mentally flexible. But don't play a game about it. So many people say to me, if they are looking for a partner, clients will come and they say, I'm not a game player. I'll say, great, tell me the games that you don't play. Nobody can tell me that. Once in a while, a semi-aware person will say, well, I'm not passive-aggressive, and that's good, but that's just one of the 1,000 million games that are out there. All right? They all come from these insecure places in us. Let's just be real. All right. You keep in mind, I want to say right here, something that I've said before, but keep in mind, we only have two things we're ever unhappy about and argue over. Number one, You don't care about me. If we perceive in any way that somebody doesn't care of us, about us, however irrational that is, I remember years ago, I had a client, still a client, he's a wonderful man, who came in and he was furious because of some sort of car cut him off in traffic, cut him off in traffic. And when I said, why are you so extremely upset about this? Because it was over the top upset, right? He got quiet and he said, because he didn't care about me. It reminded me of how my dad used to dismiss me certain times, and I took it as he didn't care about me either. Now, is it rational that a car on the street that doesn't know you wouldn't care about you? No, it's not rational, but we're not talking about the rational part of you kids. This is the problem. If you're thinking that the emotional body, the body of you, the energetic body that contains all the emotions is rational, we got another thing coming, because often it's contradicting itself. It's not rational at all. My job is to go and put my hands on the things that you don't need, that are irrational, and get them out of there so that things can flourish there that belong in your emotional body, like unconditional love and forgiveness and awe of the system and compassion and a lot more wonderful things. Those are the things that belong there, that will always be there in the highest self. This rage at my father for dismissing me, and now I'm projecting it to that car that just cut me off in traffic. You don't need to do that. Indeed, that's a game, but it's often, all these games are played in our heads, you see. Okay. Let's move on to the next characteristics. The next characteristic is comfortable with closeness. Kennison goes on to say that secures are comfortable with closeness, unconcerned about boundaries. They seek intimacy and aren't afraid of being enmeshed. I don't like that word. Here we go, me objecting. I think an enmeshment is an issue. I would rather we love people purely. Now, he may mean that we're not worried about, and that's what he says, we aren't afraid of being enmeshed. He's not saying you should be. So maybe I have interpreted that incorrectly for him. Forgive me, Dr. Kennison. I don't like, we can't be enmeshed. We have to be our own individual people and love very purely and cleanly. That's our goal, isn't it? As conscious individuals. It is. But that we should worry about losing ourselves in a relationship. No, we should simply be ourselves and know what we need. For example, Michael is to that. Let me think of another example. I am a huge animal lover. Man, do I love animals. There are none, animal, wild or domestic, that I don't love. I love them all. Michael loves his more than he loves everybody else's. He can appreciate everybody else's, but he loves his animals. Why isn't that all right? It is perfectly all right. Now, here's my point about partnership and enmeshment. He doesn't have to be me, and I don't have to be him. He knows this is a characteristic of mine, that I am wild about all animals. And that's fine. That he isn't, fine. I mean, he's interested. Fine. But I don't have to be him, and he doesn't have to be me. We don't have to lose who we are in that aspect, do we? And you don't either. You have to know what you like to do. I love to read. I read all the time. My husband loves to read. He reads all the time too. I started to use that as an example. That's actually something we have in common. That's wonderful. But if I was married to a non-reader, I'd still be reading, wouldn't you? Don't lose these parts of you. You need to know who you are. You need to know what's essential to you. You need to keep them. You understand? This is the same point that he's making, because secures aren't overwhelmed by a fear of being slighted, as they are when they're anxious, or the need to deactivate, as are the avoidants. They find it easy to enjoy closeness, whether physical or emotional. Okay, I'll buy that. Secures, this is the next point, are quick to forgive. They assume their partner's intentions are good and are therefore likely to forgive them when they do something hurtful. I think that's really important. I have a little different way of saying it, same thing. And that is in our marriage vows. We said, here is who I think you are, and this is what I'm going to hold on to when we argue. This is actually in our marriage vows. This is who I know you to be. And I think it's very helpful, because Michael and I often will go back to that consciously or subconsciously and go, wait a minute, I know that you're something else other than what you did in this moment. I came from a household, now a lot of you will agree or not agree with this. I came through up in a household that didn't mind words at all. We used all sorts of words, all right? Michael did not. He did not come from that household. It was a very different household. So the first time I called him an asshole, he got very, very, very offended. And I understood what I had done. And I had a talk with him afterwards, once the argument was over. And I said, sweetheart, I wouldn't be married to you if I thought you were a chronic asshole. Absolutely not. But if I say that, it is only concerning this moment. And in that moment, we've got to find out the misunderstanding, because we know who we are. We know ourselves to be better and kinder and gentler than we are appearing. And I mean, I remember one time he called me an asshole. We both called each other an asshole, and we said, yeah, and we had a good laugh. Yeah, we both were being. That's great to acknowledge that. That's actually healthy. And then you find out what you're arguing about. Sometimes it takes a couple of days, because you got to figure it out. Because, whoa, it's never what it seems. It's never what it seems. You're never arguing about what's going on the surface. You're either arguing about, you don't care about me, or what's the second one? You remember? I never get what I want. That's the second one. These are the two things that people always argue about. You don't care about me, something interpreted, you don't care about me, or something interpreted, I'll never get what I want. Those are the only two things anybody ever argues about. Anything that we're upset about always fits into those two categories. So the truth is in those two categories of what you're arguing about. Please understand me, what I'm saying to you. The truth, the real nugget that you're arguing about is not who let the cat out when they shouldn't be out. It is about you don't care about me, or I never get what I want. Guys, you will be light years ahead of people that don't know this about the world, if you will accept those two things as the only arguable points. And the reason that's good is it's going to take you right down, no matter what you think you're arguing about, to the nugget that you actually are arguing about. And that can be fixed there. And then it's a non-issue once you have a solution of what you're going to do next time. Now, of course, all this depends, if you're in a partnership, with choosing a good partner. It's what dating's about. For God's sake, don't be so glad that somebody loves you that you don't look at them clearly. You must look at them clearly to see what you're getting. Once you do, and you know you got a good one, then that's the way to work it out. You understand? Good. His next point is, and by the way, I want you to realize with every single one of these, This is all about authenticity. This is all about being your authentic self. Your authentic self is quick to forgive because they go down to these points. You understand that? You understand the motivation. What a wonderful gift that is. I didn't give it to you, but Spirit did. Because each of us have that realization inside us now, and we can go right to what this is about. I interpreted, my dear, what you did here as you're not caring about me. Well, I didn't mean that at all. Of course you didn't. Well, I interpreted the fact that you responded to me this way as you don't care about me. Of course he did, or she did. Now, what are we going to do about it? First, we're going to say we care, right? And then we're going to see what we can do to fix this. There we are. Of course we're quick to forgive. Because we're going to what really is the problem. And it's in us, not in them. I think partnerships are marvelous for this reason. They reveal to us the pockets of unlovingness we still have in us, so that we can get on the other side of them and love and know the privilege of real love and real intimacy. Okay? All right, the next point that Kennison makes is these people, secures, we're talking about, are inclined to view sex and emotional intimacy as one. They don't need to create distance by separating the two, by being close either emotionally or sexually, but not both, right? I think this is such a true statement. And it's interesting because when I bring this up to people, particularly young people, they use a great excuse. They say, well, everybody sleeps with everybody. Everybody doesn't feel that way anymore. And you know what? I always say, well, go right ahead and feel that way. But the same things that make a wonderful, lasting relationship through the years are the same things that always have. And what they're doing is playing with this truism in their insecurity. That's fine. I don't have any kind of compunction. I don't tell people how to live, believe it or not. My husband goes, yes, you do. And I say, I'm making suggestions to you guys. That's really, I hope you take it that way, because I never think I'm telling anybody. Oh, God, I wouldn't do that. But I am making suggestions, and I am saying that I think the only way to create a real, lasting, long-lived relationship is to view sex and intimacy as one thing. It's all one thing. Love, one thing. Love is expressed in lots and lots of ways. In the caring of ourself, in the making love to a partner, letting all that good mental, emotional, and spiritual energy pass through the physical, you see, to have wonderful sex. This is all the same thing in the higher levels of us. It's when we are in the ego child's mind that we're compartmentalizing all these things, and it allows us to do whatever we want to do. And yet we say we want a long-lasting love. There are some things to look at in that, you see? The next point. I am stopped sometimes by his words. And all due respect, I think he's wonderful, but I am stopped sometimes by his words. The reason is I am looking at a more holistic view of people, I think, I may be reading him wrong. I don't know him, but he says in his next point, they treat their partners like royalty. When you become part of their inner circle, they treat you with love and respect. I think that's a lovely fantasy. Really, I do. I think sometimes it's easier to treat someone with love and respect when they don't live with you. All right. I think that treating someone with love and respect, I think, is an ongoing process, and I think it is absolutely achievable. My point here is treating you like royalty. I got a problem with that. Why? Because that sounds like fantasy to me. Treating you like royalty. I just don't buy that. I love my husband. My husband loves me. We are respectful and kind and loving to each other most of the time, unless somebody's stepping over the line, at which time we'll point it out. Treating each other like royalty. That line bothers me. I think sometimes we do. Sometimes we have a birthday or a Christmas or a lovely occasion that we celebrate just for love, and we can get back to that pot spot, but it's a real spot. I don't think you're going to be every day treated like a queen or a king. I think that we need to come down to earth on that one. Okay. As long as we have that on the table. The next point. Secures are secure in their power to improve their relationship. Now, I do believe this one. They're confident in their positive beliefs about themselves and others. Logical. I buy that. Yes, absolutely. Now, how do you do that, though? Well, one of the things you do is to go on this journey to self. If you don't know yourself and know how you're wired, you don't know how to work through relationships, work through problems that come up, inevitably come up. You must learn how to work through these things. Life is not one big fantasy where everybody feels good. Sometimes you do not feel like you'll get anything. You're not going to get what you want. Sometimes you're going to feel that someone doesn't care about you. Then you've got to put those things on the table, and you all have got to work out a solution. It's extremely important to figure it out. That's the power to improve your relationship. Knowing how to work through everything. Going to the bottom line. What's the bottom line? You don't care about me. I'm not going to get what I want. Those are the bottom lines. Going to that point and then saying, what can we do about this in the future? It may be someone remembering to close the door when they go out so the cat doesn't get out. Okay. That's an easy one to put in place. Now, this one I have a problem with, this next point of his. He says, secures are responsible for their partner's well-being. They expect others to be responsive and loving toward them, and so they are responsive to others' needs. The whole line bothers me. Let me tell you why. We should not love people only contingent upon them loving us. That's just not the higher self. The higher self defines themselves as loving and acts accordingly. That's the first point I want to make about this. The second point I want to make about this is you're not responsible for anybody's well-being. No. Let me put that in different words. You are responsible to provide an environment for well-being. As a loving person, I'm responsible for providing that kind of environment to my home and to my husband and to my animals and to my friends. But they get to do what they need to do. And they can take care of themselves or not take care of themselves or do what they need to do within that. But I have provided a space for them. Now that's where my responsibility ends. I'm not responsible for somebody's well-being. I'm not responsible for somebody's happiness. They're not responsible for mine. We're responsible for our own. This is the highest self, guys. All right? And if we are defined in our beings as love itself, and we are, that's our highest selves, then you need to be that, right? Even if we're arguing, by the way. Are you arguing in love or are you arguing in something else? We all need to learn how to work through problems. And sometimes that does have to include raising our voices. I think I told you all, I'm going to make it, I meant to tell you this when I was talking about the asshole word. I had found that word in German in a book I read. So I laid in wait until we had a disagreement. My husband's Austrian. And then I said, you what you are Arschloch. Everything stopped. It was just like in the movies. It was so funny. Everything stopped. I stopped. He stopped. And then we burst out laughing. It was great. It was very funny. It was a lovely moment. Guys, is everything worth arguing about? I want to say, I think love is a real privilege. It's an incredible privilege. The love that we have for ourselves, the love that we live in as a world, and know that God is there, and that we would have blown ourselves up a long time ago if God was not so loving an energy. As an energy, it is the energy that we live and thrive in. It's a privilege to create it in our homes. It's to share it with another individual, to share it with a lot of individuals that are our friends. It's just a wonderful soup to swim in. But we've got to put clean, good vegetables in that soup, honeys. And it has to do not with them and whether they deserve love. It has to do with you and whether you are actually going to be love or not. All right. That's what I want to say. Thank you, Jeb Kennison, for all those good points for us to talk from. And I want to go to another article right now before we dive back into authenticity, because all this has to do with it, of course. And that is how your attachment style, as long as we're talking about it, impacts your relationships. So this writer is Dr. Jade Wu, W-U. She has written either under the banner or written a book on the savvy psychologist. I imagine that's her moniker. Okay. She says, let's look at different aspects of relationships that often determine how they start, flourish, or wither, and perhaps end. Okay, well, let's look at this for a minute. I think it's very important. It's another way to look at attachments, and she's got some interesting points here. One is aspects of relationships is commitment. And here's what she says about it concerning attachment styles. So let's go on and put some of this on the table. She said, choosing to commit to a relationship can be a rational, economical process of weighing pros and cons. Interesting choice of words there. But it's not hard to imagine there are less rational processes, and she's putting on the table, these are the attachment styles that we've talked about. It's no surprise that out of all the attachment styles, people with dismissive avoidant attachment styles feel the least committed to their romantic relationships. On the flip side, secure attachment people feel the most committed. Unsurprisingly, researchers who follow the activity of people with avoidant styles for a few months, found that these people with avoidant styles were most likely to break up. Why? They avoid rather than seeking the truth. Okay? Keep in mind there's a real good reason, whatever you are, for being what you are. But it's also a privilege that you can work out of this once you know what you are. For example, if you avoid, wonderful. Don't avoid anymore. Find out what is in the mouth of lion, okay? And work out the problem. You're not threatened in most cases. If you are threatened, get out of here. But in most cases, this is just the irrational fear of not knowing what to do and how to handle this, and that you're threatened in some way because of that. You're back in the child's mind going, oh my God, I don't have any resources. I'm a child. I cannot handle this force, right? That's not what's happening at all. That's just what seems to be happening. Those are different things. I get real tickled because when I'm working with dismissive avoidant people, it's hard to start them going on this. Why? Because they'd rather avoid working on this. They've done it their whole life. So I have to get real tricky with them, and I'll say, look at that. Look at what you just said. That's avoidant. Whoop, look at what you're doing. You're dismissing. Look at, right? And they go, oh my God. Because these things, you see, my dears, are normalized. You've been normalizing them since you were a kid. Normalize. That means everybody's doing it. It's normal for me. No, it's not normal for you at all. You see, that's the advantage of knowing about some of these things, isn't it? The advantage of knowing about some of these things is for you to go, wow, look at what I've been doing. Do I want to keep doing that? The answer is no, you don't. But it's also not a light switch that turns off. First of all, you're unaware, then you're a little bit aware, then you're a lot aware, then you find yourself still doing it. You catch those things, then you go back into being aware, and then you go, oh, wait a minute, I caught myself again, and you do that several times, and then all of a sudden you start saying, oh, yeah, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I can see something different there, and I can live in that. That's how you get over things, guys. It isn't a flip of a light switch. It is patience. It's realizing we're all human, that we're all doing something, and that we have the marvelous privilege of going on a journey and being different, doing something else now that will bring us more happiness. She goes on to say, this Dr. Wu, that those with avoidant attachment styles, by the way, that's everybody, but particularly the ones that are called fearful avoidant or anxious avoidant, those are the same ones, by the way, or dismissive avoidant. Those with avoidant attachment styles feel uncomfortable with emotional closeness and believe they don't need or want intimacy. Sometimes they even pride themselves on their lack of need. I don't need anybody, right? So the first sign of conflict or a moment that lacks excitement can be enough to make them end it. Their lack of wanting to commit and get close might push their partner to make the decision for them. Isn't that interesting? I know a darling dismissive avoidant that I just love with all my heart. And she uses this. She looks like she doesn't need anybody. That is the energy she puts out all over the place, that she doesn't need anybody. And yet she wants someone so badly that much of her energy is in fantasy about her family, about other people. You see how this works? When what would fix that whole thing, that whole system? I'll tell you what would fix that whole system. What would fix that whole system? Abject honesty. Which I am delighted to say she is in now. Where she goes, yeah, I did that. And I can see how they would think I don't need anybody. And I do. I genuinely do. Let's contact your loneliness. Let's contact how you really feel about yourself. Let's fix this. You see? The second point, now again, we're talking about aspects of relationships, right? That's what Dr. Wu was talking about here, is jealousy and trust. And she wants to put that on the table. I think that's a good thing to put on the table. She says that when jealousy is used right, it is there to help us identify threats to our relationship. Absolutely. Great. But when it's over the top and not in proportion to healthy behaviors and to the actual event that's occurring, like checking their phone or restricting in some way, controlling their independence of our partners, certainly it can lead to all sorts of problems. She goes on to say that researchers have found that those with the anxious, preoccupied attachment style, that's fearful, anxious, preoccupied attachment style, she's right about that, are the most likely to engage in surveillance of their partners. They also feel worse when they're experiencing jealousy than people without this attachment style. Now, this is the anxious preoccupieds. Oftentimes in my book, anxious preoccupieds also have a sister, which is dependent personalities attached to that. It's all part of a dependent personality syndrome. Because anxious preoccupieds and also avoidant people have difficulty trusting others, both styles are associated with more irrational beliefs in a relationship when compared to people, of course, with secure attachments. She goes on to say, insecurely attached people not only feel more jealous, but they can be prone to making their partners jealous on purpose. I don't know why I'm thinking of this. I read something on the internet this week about Rita Moreno, who I think is so cute. You know, she was... I like to be in America, that Rita Moreno, right? She's been around a long time. Marvelous actor. But she was talking about in her younger days how she had an affair with Marlon Brando. I don't know what was going on there, but she said that she had an affair then with Elvis Presley, or at least a one-night stand. I'm not sure what it was. Forgive me, Rita. But to make Marlon jealous. Guys, that's game playing. That's this, right? Now, I'd like to think that she's well past it. She certainly looks like she is. But it certainly points to something like this. Specifically, having an anxious, preoccupied, or fearful avoidant style makes a person more likely to induce jealousy in other people. Anxious, preoccupied people use more aggressive communication, while fearful, avoidant people tend to be more passive-aggressive. Okay, fine. That makes sense to me. I hope it does to you too. One attachment researcher, this person was not described by Dr. Wu, so I don't know who this is, described 4 prerequisites for being able to have intimacy in a relationship. I happen to agree with this. Ability to care, ability to give care, ability to feel comfortable with an autonomous self, and the 4th one, an ability to negotiate, i.e., in my opinion, work through problems, right? These abilities are affected by your attachment style. Securely attached people are more connected to their romantic partners with more and more joint friendships. And then she goes on to actually use the word we're looking for here. They are also more authentic in the way they express themselves in a relationship. And she does remind us to not forget that this certainly has everything to do with platonic relationships as well. How you are with any relationship absolutely reveals your attachment style. I'm watching my time. She goes into, again, the different aspects of relationships. She has a little talk here about sexual enjoyment. So let's talk about that relative to this. I think that's important. Those with a secure attachment style also have greater sexual intimacy with their romantic partners, as well as good communication about sex, and they rate sexual satisfaction higher, generally speaking. Insecurely attached people are more likely to have anxiety or inhibitions about communicating about sex with their partners. You remember what I said. Sex at its best is when you have a physical relationship with somebody, channeling all the energy of your mental, emotional, and spiritual experience through the physical. Okay? So you got to be open in all those areas when you're having sex, you see? Or it's less satisfying. Okay. She goes on to say, in men, having both anxious and avoidant attachment styles associated with a higher chance of experiencing sexual compulsivity. Having both anxious and avoidant attachment styles. Now, concerning my clients, I'm going to say, and this is absolutely true, these are people that, because they can't get deeper in a relationship, rush a relationship. And one of the great ways to rush a relationship is through sex. I want you all to be careful of that. If you recognize that in you, don't do that. Don't use sex that way. Don't rush anything. A wonderful, deep, and powerful relationship develops over time. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. I think of a funny story that my husband tells. He was applying for his permanent residence affiliation here. And he was being interviewed in Austria. And our relationship happened rather fast, about 6 months before we got married, right? That's what it looked like on the surface. Because I knew my husband when we were 20 years old. He was a good friend, my best friend in college. We were all 20, and she died. Her name was Barbara. So, when he's being interviewed by this man in Austria, with the embassy, I guess, the man said, well, this is kind of rushing it, 6 months, you've known this woman. And he said, well, you could look at it that way, but in my opinion, I've been waiting for her for 48 years. And that's the truth, you see. We knew each other a very long time before we got together. You don't have to wait that long, ladies and gentlemen, but you do have to know each other very well. All right. Moving along with what she says. She goes on to say that in women, insecure attachment can be reason for aggressive behaviors, which allows them to provoke other people to engage with them without having to be vulnerable. We've been watching a wonderful film. It's a series. It's a Spanish series called Money Heist. And one of the characters in there, what is her name? They all have names of, got a gorgeous figure, short brown hair. But anyway, she certainly does that. She provokes sexual experiences, certainly without having to be vulnerable. I don't remember what her name is. All right. In a diverse group that includes, they did gays, straights, cisgender, and genderqueer participants, attachment style was a big predictor of sexual desire and satisfaction. But it isn't everybody, guys. It's very important for you to look at attachment styles. That's the reason I have gone into that all over again. If you want to know more about that, please, please, please go back and listen to the shows that I did on this to know more. I think they're extremely important. Now, let's go into our next thing. We've got 18 minutes left. Lordy, will I ever finish the series? The answer is probably no. Okay. I always say I'm finished with what I have right in front of me, and then I find other things, right? Well. Okay, moving along. Part of authenticity is resilience. We've got to be resilient. This is a world that is challenging our ability to do that. Oh, Lord, all of a sudden I looked at the screen and the hair. Oh. It's challenging us to be resilient. I haven't had a haircut or anything else, or a dye job, or any of the things that I need in this crazy old world where people are suffering a lot more than I am. I'll tell you, it's just horrible what's going on out there in many cases. So don't think just because I talk about something so ridiculous as hair that I have my eyes closed about anything else. I do not. But we do need to be resilient. Resilience is a critical factor to emotional well-being, and it's a critical component of authenticity. I found a lovely article, and this is by Kristen Meekoff, Meekhof. She's written a book called A Widow's Guide to Healing, and I just liked this article so much. It was very honest and sweet and real, and I think she had some wonderful things to say. The article is 13 things resilient people do. Let's talk about those things. I'll get through as many as I can in 16 minutes. She says resilient people tend to engage in certain behaviors that allow them to reset and pivot when necessary. Guys, look at the world right now. I mean, even in terms of our work, I was talking to a friend of mine this week. We're so worried about our small and medium-sized businesses in the world because they're suffering. They can't do business the same way they always have. And they're going to have to reset and pivot and invent things a little differently here and there if they're going to survive at all. I think it's really important to develop this characteristic. One of the things I want to talk about too at some point is creativity. I think being creative, a different level of I think I've given a show on creativity, but I want to talk about a deeper aspect of that and how it all works, and certainly how to be open to it in your own lives. So she goes on to say there are 13 things resilient people do well. This is not in particular order, but I think we ought to talk about this. She says that resilient people can see the big picture. They, while they might have hawkeye vision for minute details, they can also see the larger landscape. And this keen vision prevents them from over-focusing and over-emphasizing something that is granular. They reflect a panoramic vision with an appreciation for details. I think this is really true. I think some of us are trained in being big picture thinkers, and some of us are trained in being detail oriented. We can have a predilection, something that we are basically, for example, I am a big picture thinker, always have been. All right, I see the big picture. That was why I was a pretty good director, a much better director than I was an actor, because I was much more interested in seeing everything, playing all the parts, realizing the author's intent, all those big picture things, than I was seeing what the actor's relationship to this prop was or anything else. But I've had to do both, and so do you. It's important that we are training ourselves to do both. What is the training? In my book, the biggest training that I ever had, certainly the life experience, certainly what I've learned in classes and from books, but the biggest thing, the thing that gave that depth and power for me, was certainly the consciousness study work I have done. The more I have looked inward, the better the vision, certainly in the details, which is not my forte. One of the reasons that I've never been a great artist, even though I love art and would love to be able to paint, is that I can't translate that to a canvas. But I can listen to you because words are my thing. And I can tell you exactly how you're put together by hearing you talk for an hour or two. And those are details. And each week going into more, those details are put together. Now, so it's going to come out in your way, the way you're supposed to have it come out, the way you are defined according to your potential. And it's there, ladies and gentlemen. It's there beyond the, I used the word last week, complacency. We've gotten to be rather complacent. We trust that tomorrow is going to be the same as today. Guys, it's not. All the shakeup that we're experiencing in the world right now with the coronavirus, it's hitting us on a lot of levels. One of the levels is the challenge to not be complacent. And perhaps be more creative in our thinking, in our being, in our adding value to the world. Certainly, everybody isn't going to feel that way. I read this morning where some jerk in, I think it was North Carolina, I'm sorry to say because I like North Carolina a lot, is charging $100 for toilet paper. Are you kidding me? So there are always jerks out there like that. Don't be one of them. Let's not. That's clearly somebody that doesn't think he's going to get what he wants. All right. The next point she makes here, and I think this is important, is resilient people remain open. Resilient people know staying open to new ideas and new opportunities fosters growth. They welcome feedback and often end sentences with a sense of openness. I like that. Be open. This is the time in your life to be open. This is the baseline of something that we've talked about before, and that is this chaos is your most creative time. Chaos is always a creative time. Chaos is a creative time. But if you're not open, it won't be. The next point. Resilient people know their blind spots. Since they're open to feedback as well as criticism, They are well aware of their blind spots. And here's the important thing. They aren't fearful of them. And I will add something else. Because they're not fearful of them, they don't judge them. How many times when I'm talking to people in a session and I say, well, here's what you're doing, I think, and they'll recognize it, and instead of going, oh my God, look at that, boy, do I have to watch that for the future. Every time, because they're in the ego child's mind, if they are, and they are most of the time, they'll say, oh, I'm so ashamed. I can't believe I'm doing that. Oh man, I'm beating themselves up. And that's when I point out, well, you can do that. That you're securing the fact that you're not going to let this go. You're holding on to it. You're just telling me right now, holding on to it instead of doing something else. Look, nobody likes to be criticized. I know some really egoic child's mind grandparents, the ones I'm talking about, now dead, who ruined generations of their own family because they supported constructive criticism that came right out of the ego child's mind, right out of their narcissism, making them feel better, them feel prettier, them feel, and really destroying the lives of their family. Isn't that awful? I think so. I watched it happen in friends. Made me so sad. They were not clients of mine. I would have spoken up. Look, nobody likes criticism. Oftentimes criticism comes. I know sometimes it comes from my husband because he's not hitting the bottom lines again. I don't feel cared about. You've made me not feel cared about in some way. Or I never get what I want. And when I open that door for him, or he opens the door for me, and we go down to those things, then we talk about it, and we can have a very long argument. Many times, fighting about things that aren't the subject, you see? And you will take those as criticisms, and you'll rail against about anyway. Those are just words you say, and why are they there? Because you're supposed to work through all those to get down to what's really true. You don't care about me, and I never get what I want. So don't be fooled by all the extra words and the fluff and the criticism there. Get down to the nugget of what really has hurt you or someone else. If the argument's strong enough, both of you are hurt in those aspects. And another thing is to find out why. Find out why. You know, I mean, we have not had the same life experiences. I think I mentioned last week that my husband lived through Chernobyl. He was in Europe when Chernobyl exploded. Their food was radioactive. They had to stay inside. Every single thing was controlled. What you could eat and how much of it you could eat to still be on the safe side. Man, I didn't even know that until all this coronavirus thing happened. And I was wondering why Michael was so adamant about certain things. Much so than my usual precautions. I couldn't understand it. Now I do. I get it. Absolutely. We've got to find out each other's pasts and why we're coming from there. And the only way in is through the doors of you don't care about me and I never got what I want. So, resilient people know their blind spots. Please do know those. Those things are revealed in everything I've ever given you in these these radio shows, in my writing, in my books that I offer to you, in every single thing. Oh man, are they important. We have an app for iPhones that's on my second book, The Teacup Prophecies. So you can either have the book and open it to your quote of the day, or you can open the app and get a quote of the day. I was adamant when we created that. I didn't have anything to do with the creation. This was my darling Jim Sadler. But I said, I don't want everybody to be given the same quote. If someone is really being in spirit, I want them for 99 cents, and it costs 99 cents for your iPhone. For 99 cents, I want them to open that and receive something that's really important to them that day. Their energy creates the quote that comes. Nobody gets the same one, and he did that. Now, guys, be in that energy. And if you've got that app, open it. If not, that book, because it is a definite message from God if you're in that energy. And it's really important that you listen. Don't be fearful. Know yourself. Her next point is that resilient people seek help, that they're well aware when they cannot solve a problem on their own, and they're willing to seek guidance from other people that might be more expert in that field. You keep in mind, what I don't like is she said they're willing to seek guidance from experts. I don't like that word. I don't like our defining ourselves as experts. I think that there are people that are more expert than I am in certain fields, and I'm more expert in certain things than they are, but I'm not an expert, neither are you, and neither is anybody. Why isn't that all right? Let's just know what we know and try to help people with it, okay? These are people, resilient people. Know that mastering a transition or challenge often takes outside assistance, guys. And they aren't afraid to ask for help. I want to tell you a quick story before we end. And that is, my dad was somebody who really liked information. He had a library full of books, right? And he insisted that I know all that information. And he said that I had to. I remember him telling me, sitting in the office, waving to all the books and saying, you got to know all this if you're going to have a good life. And I remember thinking, even as a kid, when he said that, I don't. I need to know what I need to know.
90 seconds.
I don't need to know all that. But for many years, because it was my dad that told me, I felt guilty about that. I needed to know all that. I felt dumb for not knowing all that. See, that's what kids do with this, guys. Okay? Go on this consciousness journey. Now, we're going to stop here, but we're going to take up right where we left off next week. All right? And I love you very much. I want you all to be... 60 seconds. I want you all to be safe and well out there. Please, I'm going to pray for you after this show. So we'll get rid of all this and try to have some of these lessons cemented. Sweeties, please know how much I appreciate your getting the word around about these shows. Please post them on social media. Please tell people about these shows. We're here so that people find this information and hopefully can use it in their lives. Thank you for listening, though. It means the world to us, all the likes and the follows and everything and the shares with other people. God bless you all. And remember that God loves you through you. All right? Stay well, stay safe, and make yourself happy out there. God bless you.
10 seconds.
See you next week. Bye-bye.